And in this case, in just 2 years, you've moved from single to shifts in job to mother, rather to wife and to a job, and to mother and then to a new job. How is Lucy experiencing all of this journey?
I guess it was a lot, but at that point, and I guess that's why it's so important. When they say who you marry is so important, it is. Because 2017 was a really, again, 2017 is when I changed jobs. The time my sister passed on in July. And then my son was born in October. So there was a lot going on during that time. And I think for me, the one thing I can say is, I think you need to just give yourself grace. But here I also want to mention is, I think we are all changing. Even men change. So that's why I'm very particular about, I think now, we move on to the next phase, because we're just about to get into our 40s, is I'm very clear that no one stays stagnant.
True.
No one stays the same. Even as you get married, I think that it should be something that you are very clear
aware about.
That no one will stay the same.
This version that I've met is probably not the version that will be there.
Yeah.
And are we willing to go through the change
and
together?
are you willing to go through the changes? So that's why I'm so big on, at least I'd like to think that values will stay.
Yeah.
Sometimes they change, to be honest. Let's
and
be
for
real.
The better,
for the better, right? And there's change for the better. And that's the thing, you're praying that or hoping that this person is going to change for the better. Same thing I'm hoping, and I'm sure it's the same thing he's hoping.
True.
But there's a lot that happens. I think I'll speak now, since I'm a woman. I'll speak from a woman's perspective. But there's so much that happens, and again, as I told you, the challenge with me is I can say I'm a borderline perfectionist, planner, OCD, borderline, where I'm like, why are things not working? You see, that's why I was so hard on myself that I didn't want to tell people that I've been laid off. And then now things are not working out the way I want. And that's why I'm telling my hubby, I need to go back. Are you willing to move with me? Then now we are getting to this place where all these things are happening at one go, mother, all that. But the one thing I've learned is, how do you give yourself grace? Because I wasn't giving myself grace. I was really hard on myself. When things don't work out, just know the way somebody is hard on me, I'm double hard on myself, right? But I think I was actually, honestly, just going with the punches. Managing, right? I was really just managing, because I remember that season was just one of those, there's a lot going on in my life.
It's a whole chapter by itself in the book, 2017.
2017 was a whole chapter in itself. Bittersweet by the end, bitter because of my sis. Then obviously this young boy who joins us. And I kid you not, I saw how support system is so important. Right? Because, and that's why I'm telling you that during that time, my sister, and that's why I say such seasons are the ones that define a relationship. Because honestly, because I know of people who have actually also gone their separate ways because of a death that was not managed well. Right? But I think those defining moments are the ones that tell me I made a good decision.
And those are moments that you can't script.
You can't script. Like, they're just there. And I generally, I can't move. I'm so sad. There's nothing I want to do. I'm like 6 months pregnant. So it's, I believe those are the things that cemented me to be like, I have a good guy here. At that point, and then I remember then, by the time I was getting this job at B-Lab, I knew I was pregnant. And I remember I told the hiring team, and I also told who's now the chair. She's the founder and the chair. And I remember I told her, before I sign this, I need you to know that
this is an important disclosure.
Yes. And by the way, I'd be okay with you not
saying yes.
Yes,
because then in a couple of months I'll be taking a break.
I'll be taking a break, and I'll understand, because this is a business that you start. Like, I get it, right? If I put on my business cap on or employer, I understand, and I wouldn't take it personally, right? But like, no, we'll figure it out. You just come and start, right? So it was one of those that I don't know. I guess now when I look back, I see how things happen, and maybe some of these things need to happen so that even me as an employer now, where I lead a team, there's that EI that's needed, empathy, emotional intelligence, right? Because sometimes you just want to drive results, and rightfully so, but people also, they're living life. Yeah.
They're living real lives.
They're living
with real issues.
With real issues. So maybe sometimes those things happen so that they also prepare you for a leadership role, right? And you're not so heartless, because I do believe, honestly, your employees are your biggest assets. There's a lot, but they are. So if they're not happy, they'll move. And it's so hard to get good talent. It is so hard. Like, we are very educated in Kenya, but I'm talking about talent, reliable talent. Yeah, it's hard.
I want to hear about this journey. This journey of you now being in B-Lab, being in the bees.
7 years.
And I'm intrigued and especially curious to hear about this journey, because I'm learning a lot also about just what social impact is and what leadership is. I'm curious, did you start off in the role as the CEO of B-Lab East Africa? And just the journey of B-Lab first, if you can guide us through that. What was the journey before you entered, and then we can pick it from where you entered and where you've taken it after. So okay. What are the foundations of it? You can have some water if you need to.
No, it's fine. So B-Lab was actually founded back in 2017 by
B-Lab?
B-Lab. Sorry. B-Lab. Then we were called B-Lab East Africa. So Global had been there from like 10 years back, 2006, 7. But B-Lab, then it was East Africa. So we got a grant from DFID, right? So B-Lab Global had, applied for a grant, DFID, so we got it. And the current chair of the board had actually been working for B-Lab by then for a couple of years, right? I'd say even 7, but a couple of years. And she'd actually already was doing a role under B-Lab Global. And then when the role came up, when we got the funding, she came back to now start East Africa. And that had always been actually something she had always wanted to do.
Let me check.
Yeah.
So it's registered as an NGO?
No, we are registered as a company limited by guarantee.
Limited. In which country?
In Kenya.
Oh, in Kenya.
B-Lab East Africa. Sorry.
All right.
Sorry.
All right.
Am I confused? Yeah, B-Lab East Africa is, so B-Lab Global, obviously. We are now talking about Africa operations. Yeah. So we were registered in 2017, right? So the founder started 2017. You know, the way you just start something, operations, founding, all that from scratch. And now she was hiring, right? And there were a couple of roles. So one of the roles was an ops manager role, operations, sorry. And that's what I applied for. And that's the role that actually got me into B-Lab.
Were there other? That was one of the roles. There were other roles as well.
Yes, but I was employee number 1. Leave the founder, now employee.
For East Africa?
Yes, for East Africa, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So a lot of was it registered by the time you are joining?
No, she had started the process, but it got registered now in July. July, you know, it takes a while. You start the process, back and forth. 2017, it was officially now registered. July.
And the grant that you had received from DFID,
yeah.
What was it for?
It was actually to set up our operations in East Africa.
All right.
And here we're looking at setting up B-Lab. And B-Lab, what we are known for is, our tools. We wanted to now start that mindset shift about how business can be a force for good. And this were through our tools. The B impact assessment. How do we get more companies using the tool to measure and manage their impact? How do we also now get more companies to be certified as B Corps, right?
Which had been happening.
It's already been happening, by the way. And we already had companies certified as B Corps in Africa.
By the time you were
setting up, right? So we had, it's just that now, since we didn't have operations in East Africa, they fall under now our global operations, right? So the whole idea was now, how do we set up something in East Africa then to now just start that, mindset shift of how can business be used as a force for good? How do we start doing, again, as I said, create more awareness about the work that B-Lab is already doing at a global scale in Africa, using our tools, certifying companies as B Corps. We actually also started doing some legal work. Again, as you know, when you became a B Corp, especially in Kenya, it's a two-step process. You complete the B impact assessment, but we also want companies, we want it to be in your DNA. So we want it to be in your governing structures, memorandum, and articles of association. So there's language, if you can remember, there's language that you actually put in your governing structures that says that you're not only considering your shareholders when making a decision, you're considering all your stakeholders. So that work itself, we started it then, right? Just to look at how is right now the law in Kenya, and we did it for different countries in East Africa, because that's part of the grant. Doing that, getting a lawyer to help us do that work, drafting that language, right? So that work, that initial work was done then. Yeah.
And so you have essentially played a role from the get-go.
Yes, from the get-go.
For B-Lab East Africa.
Yes.
How has the journey been? What at that, especially at that founding time, outside now of the many aspects that are happening around your personal life, how did the journey itself, how did you take it, heading operations and beginning to build a farm?
That's a good question. I think then, and I still didn't understand what sustainability is. I have to be very honest. I always feel like sustainability found me, not the other way. Or I found it, I don't know. But then I was still not, but I knew this, whatever we are doing is aligned to my values, which is something that's very important to me at this point in my career. Maybe when I was starting, but at this point where I feel I'm very clear on what I want, I have to be doing work that I think is not misaligned.
Yeah.
It might not be completely aligned, but it cannot be misaligned.
Yeah.
Right? Goes completely against what I believe. So with B-Lab, at least at the moment, I was like, I really like the mission and vision of what they're trying to do. Yeah, using business as a force for good. Looking at, I've been now in the country for 3 years, and I can see blatantly that this is very much needed. Based on what I've seen in organizations or what I hear my friends talking about, or just generally listening to the culture. I was like, yeah, this is aligned. This is something that I can definitely put in some work. But I'll be honest, because of that first year, because of all those things that were happening, for me it was just work. It hadn't yet clicked to, in those seasons in your life where there's so much that's happening, you just rolling with the punch, like every day. So that first year, I was doing good work, but it had not yet. I didn't hate it. Yeah, it's just that there was so much happening. I don't know if that makes sense.
Someone says, "I'm doing enough. I'm doing my part. I'm doing enough not to get fired."
Yes.
Kind of situation.
Yeah, it was just that situation because, again, so much happening from personal level, but I was excited about my team, both even at a global level. I mean, we have such good colleagues. Then we were working along the Nana Road. I loved all the other organizations that were in the impact space that we were sharing an office with. And that's where my impact journey started, to be honest, right? I mean, I can't say where I am right now and how I'm so passionate about the work that we do started then. I'd actually be lying to the audience. But that is where my journey started. Just listening to the lingos, understanding what people are doing. I'm like, okay. Hearing, you know, what are the challenges that we have in this space, in the ecosystem, who are the players in the ecosystem. Right.
And at the time, what were the main challenges and who are the main players as of that time?
I mean, at that time, I would say for us, obviously, is just how do we make the products that we're doing, which is a good product, how do we simplify it for the audience, right? Because what we do is great, but I think one thing I believe is sometimes we do make, you know, sustainability and impact sound like it's something that's so complicated, but it really isn't, right? So how do we make sure that we are meeting our audience in Africa or in East Africa here at the level they are at, with the challenges that we have in Africa? Because we also have to understand that different markets are at different maturity levels. Where a market in a developed market, how they approach sustainability is different, because there are things that are already working for them, right? So that now, even where you are at a mindset shift as a society is very different, right? Now there are some decisions you're able to make because of purchasing power, government is working, efficiency are working, so there's a place you're at. But in when we look at Kenya or East Africa, we're not there yet. Businesses are still trying to see how do we make services more efficient, how do we work well with government, you know, all those things. So that's why I'm saying it had been a journey for us to see how do we now meet the business at their level and give a value proposition that makes sense for them.
Was there anyone else as an actor who was doing something close?
I mean, at that point, I remember we used to share offices with the Andy team, Aspen Network of Development Entrepreneurs. And up to now, by the way, that's how I get to know Katuchi, because then she used to work at Andy, right? And they were really good in terms of, because even then they're a network in terms of just doing those introductions to us. So they were quite, again, as I said, those ones have become even lifelong friends. We still call each other even after they've moved on past Andy. But the one thing I must admit, everyone I know in the social, we're very passionate. We're very passionate. I'm yet to meet somebody who's in this space and is not passionate about the work.
I think the passion is the third P, because there's purpose, profit, and passion that sort of, you know, go together. And a lot of the people in the impact space, for the purpose and passion that exists. I think the question, especially for those who are in broader social development, social impact and development space, is where do we get the profit? How do we break even? How do we ensure sustainability from the lens of resourcing, but also in these other issues around governance, ownership, community. But the profit part is a big question. I'm curious about the B labs now that are
across the world,
especially across Africa. Are they primarily profit organizations who?
Are you talking about B Corps?
B Corps.
Okay.
Yeah, B Corps.
You said B Lab, so that was like B Corps.
No.
B but it's a good thing. B Corp, let me just tell our audience, B Lab is the organization we work for, right?
And why B?
B, that's a good one. So one thing, B, normally it's benefits, right? Benefit, but when we were starting, when I say that, I don't want people to confuse that with, there's something in US we call benefit corporation, which is actually, now it's a corporate governance structure that a company can actually set themselves up. We don't have that in Kenya yet, but it's where you can actually set yourself up as me as an organization. As I start, I am going to consider all stakeholders and not shareholders. You see the way you can set up as a private company, with shares. You can actually set up something like that in the US. We're not there yet. But yes, the B has always been something that people ask, but yes, benefit. And what I wanted to say was B Lab is the organization. B Corp is a certification. Yes. B Corp, B Corporation is now the certification which Development Dynamics has.
The entry point is usually the B impact assessment.
And we work with for-profit, because you asked me if all our companies are for-profit. Yes. B Lab was actually set up to work with private sector.
Primarily.
That is our mandate, to work with how do we make sure that business is a force for good, because business can be a force for good. Because and the conversations here is because, you know, before most of our social and environmental problems, you'll see it would be government and NGOs that would actually try to solve them, right? So when B Lab was formed, is actually how do we get
private sector
to be part of that conversation, right? Because they need to be part. It's such crucial. A big,
crucial.
They're crucial, yeah.
Back then, the equivalent of that then in most organizations was CSR.
Yes, CSR, perfect. So as we want to now move from CSR just being in marketing, but now
it was largely in marketing,
it's marketing
and PR.
Yes, and PR. But now we are moving to, can your business, you know, is this not doing an initiative, right, to show that, you know, you're trying to uphold the community and all that, but how we're trying to change mindset and business culture is it should be your whole business. You look at your whole business and you're looking at, are you a responsible business by the practices you have in with all your stakeholders. And here we're looking at your employees, obviously, how you're treating them, how you're paying them. We're looking at your governance structures as well, right? Because that is important. It's our business, right? And not only considering just them, but the whole idea is, do you have the right system in place? A board advisory, or a board of directors, and you're getting your books audited. I mean, that is a good business. Those are things that need to happen. We're looking at also community, right? And your supply chain. Are you trying to hire from your community as much as possible? Suppliers, are you also just looking at your suppliers and who is supplying to you and the practices that they have? Customers as well. What impact are you trying to create with them? In terms of how you communicate with them, the products that you give, and also the environment. So the whole idea is you're shifting from, you know, a department where you're only looking at CSR, but it's a mindset shift where your business, your whole business, you're looking at all the practices, right? And seeing what impact are you creating? Where is your starting point and how can you improve? Right?
So there are measures.
There are measures. Yeah.
What has been, in your observation, the one place within all of those indicators or areas, the 5, governance, community, employees, environment, and customers, where, in your view, has there been like the biggest challenge, especially when you're looking at the African market?
Okay, that's a good question. First of all, I'll say how we have set up the assessment tool. It's all those areas. And so we look at the company's operations, your day-to-day operations. And because your day-to-day operations actually show you whether you're an impactful business, right? Just what you do holistically. But then we have what we call impact business models. And how an impact business model is when you are creating company X, right? What impact did you want to create, right? Maybe you wanted to create, I'll give an example. You wanted to make sure, like how you create your business, you'll be giving employee ownership. Like it to be owned by the employees. See, that is a business impact business model. Yeah. So it's just how, when you're creating it, how was that done, right? And so there are some companies that they are very specific on. That is the impact that they're creating, and that's where they'll get most of maximum points, right? I would say that's a good question, but I'd say maybe environment is something we are lagging behind. We can work towards. I think right now it's a very big thing because of climate change and all that. Yeah. So now, because of the consciousness, we are all trying to upskill quite a bit. But the truth is, I won't even pinpoint one area. I think the challenge we see a lot is we have a lot of businesses that are doing some really innovative work, by the way, in Africa. Even the analysts we work with, because all our analysts are actually global. Like B-Lab Global does all the analysis, the certification and verification for all the partners. We have very innovative businesses. It's just that sometimes it's hard for us to show supporting documentation, right? And here, maybe I'm not talking about the multinationals that already have the legacy, team and the resources to do all that. But maybe here we're looking at the SMEs and smaller, where they say they do good work, but you see, think about it like an audit. We need to see the supporting documentation. Now the challenge comes in you can't show the support. Right. So you can't get those points if you can't show the support. So we need to move to more, I think, data. How do we create those policies in place and all that, and get more data? Because I think the data also helps businesses be able to communicate their impact, to communicate to even investors or whoever they want to communicate to their stakeholders, and you're able to track what you need to improve on in the future, right? Yeah.
And I'm thinking, for the sake of audience, is there, against each of the areas, is there a thing that an organization can consciously do? For instance, for environment, what's the one thing currently that we can say, organization, think about your air miles, for instance, so that you're not burning carbon all the time. If a meeting can happen, you don't need to travel 16 hours to X place to do a meeting for a day and come back. That can be organized virtually, because there's a lot of just carbon emission that's going to happen as a result. And that's a practical thing that someone can consciously, if you're running an organization or you're already thinking about forming one, that's a mentality you can come with. Since you're in the business of shifting mindsets, which are a few things, a few pointers you can say, just check on this, check on this, check on this?
I think what I believe, especially when a company is starting out, and I think you give air miles, which I love that idea, but I think we can give even something simpler. Because, and why I say that is, here I'll speak from a business that's just starting out. They're not even thinking air miles, to be honest. So for sure, maybe they're doing more virtual than the air
by default.
But when you think about sustainability and impact, and that's what I was saying, it's really about what you do every day as an organization. I would honestly say start with having some systems and processes in place you write down. Right? What are your policies? A very simple, maybe HR policy that you can start off with. Right? And also maybe we are looking at, and maybe community, and that's what we're saying, just making sure as much as possible, can I hire people who are talented and are just around the community? We don't need to go so far, right? Because the whole idea of that is also just making sure we're using the talent that we have as much as possible and give it job creation within the community. But the whole idea is start with small. You don't have to start big, right? Small, incremental. Yeah, and that's why I'm all for, we don't need the apps yet. If you're a startup, or just start with Excel, Word, type in those HR policy manuals that you'll get online, and you can start from there, right? Because I always feel it's easier to start off from that level when you're small and trying to put in some organization structure then, right? And then as you grow, you see you can strengthen them, and you can now, add more detail as you get more employees, but you need to start from there. You start with just the basics. What do I need? That's why I said a HR policy. You look at, even if you have to have an office, we're looking at what type of lights do you have. Can I recycle waste and all that. Like you just start with those small things as you grow, because sometimes I do believe, and that's why I said we have to start by meeting you where the organization is at. And the reason why I'm big on that is because, especially at that point, you're trying to just start your ops. So there are things you are not thinking about, right? Like B Corp certification would not be something you're thinking about at that point, right? Maybe that you don't have money for that. We do have some that start, but that's not the norm. At that point, you're just trying to see, how do I get my, the lights are on, we have paid our bills and all that. But you can start by having good processes in place.
Right, yeah.
Good systems and processes in place that everyone in the organization, as they come in, they know what they need to do. Right? And then we can take it from there. At that point, you also work on the B impact assessment. And I always say, not everything is going to be applicable to you. Like, there's some things you might not get the most points, but when you look at your strategy, you're like, it's not, right? It's not what is most important right now. So let's work on the things that are most important as we work towards you building a better business
from that.
And so that's what I'm saying, from scratch, we're just looking at the minimum things. Have those policies in place that you would need based on the organization that you are, that makes sense, right? And then let's build from there. And the B impact assessment is really good for helping you think through.
Start you
off and looking at what should be the minimum. And that's why I said you also need to look at your strategy, resources. So what makes sense at this point? Then you come up with a good short, mid, long-term strategy. And I think when you approach it like that, it becomes something that is doable. It becomes doable at that point. Because I think the challenge is now when you start thinking, and that's why I'm trying to see, how do we make it simple, right? Because I honestly think, and I think I said this during your session, is you actually create impact, right? And maybe as practitioners, we need to do a better job of explaining it better, but you are creating impact as an organization. You may not be tracking it or measuring it, but it's there.
And the tool in this case that helps you to do a self-assessment and to show you where you are at in the hierarchy of being able, I think the B impact assessment tool is great. I want to come back to your leadership journey there, from ops manager to now you're the CEO, but I'll ask that you take a quick break. I think they want to change microphone, and then we'll come back and do the last part. Welcome back to this final part of the conversation with Lucy Nyambura Muigai. Some people know her as Nyambura from a while back. And we've had the story. And at this stage, we know that she's joined B-Lab East Africa. So the transition of B-Lab East Africa moving to B-Lab Africa, and also to you moving from managing ops to then leading the organization. Tell us about that.
Okay. So again, as I mentioned, when we're given the funding by DFID, it was to actually set up operations for East Africa. So by the end of the year, we were also now supporting East and Southern Africa.
Okay.
So at that point, we actually had one of the B-Lab colleagues, we had somebody trying to, I don't want to say set up, because again, as I said, we already had B Corps in Africa at that point. but they were trying to, create them. Whatever we were doing in East Africa at that point was being done in South Africa. And then at that point, at the end of the year, they decided to do something different, to pivot. And then, so what we did was whatever efforts she'd already started were now brought into now
Was she based those sides?
Yes, she was based in South Africa as well. So, but because there was already a network, it was already being created, there were companies that were already in the pipeline, we now started supporting them. So by the end of the first year, we were actually doing work for East and Southern Africa. And we did that for a couple of years, I'd say 2 or 3 years. And then during COVID, now we even had more interest for companies across Africa, right? And at that point, these businesses were being supported directly by global, US, yes, US, yes. They're being supported directly. And then what, so we decided as B-Lab that it just made sense because these businesses are based in Africa. Let us support them so that they're part now of our community in Africa. So the journey started us supporting businesses across Africa. And here we're looking at West, North Africa, because at the beginning it was just mainly Eastern and South. Then, and so we have actually been supporting them for a while. It's just that the name change took longer to happen because we did the name change now last year, March, beginning of last year. That's when we officially now branded to B-Lab Africa. And by then it's just because we had so many B Corps across Africa. We were trying to be inclusive. It also made more sense now when you're approaching even a company in South Africa or West Africa, because the conversations are, where is B-Lab there? And so as we expand, that could take place. But right now we wanted it to start as a central hub, right? Central hub. And then from there we can now start seeing how expansion looks like across Africa. Yeah, so the journey towards B-Lab Africa has been consistent. I mean, and very progressive. Now we do have a couple of B Corps. I mean, our biggest market for B Corps is still in Kenya, but I guess it's because that's where we started off. And then second is South Africa. And then now across Africa, we have quite a few, right? So right now we have just close to 70 B Corps across Africa. We're still growing the movement. We're still thinking Pan-Africa as much as possible. We do have some strategic focus markets in Africa, but we do support all businesses in Africa.
Which are your pointed markets? So
as it is right now, because we look at it from every year on a year strategy. So right now we have Kenya, South Africa, Egypt, and Ghana. Every corner. So those are our key focus markets. And again, as we Ghana was not part of it last year, and this year it has. So it just shows you how it's growing.
When you say focus country, are you looking at an X number of B Corps in that country by a particular time, or what's your yardstick?
So what we use as our yardstick is, yes, 1, B Corps. 2, we look at how is sustainability taking, because again, Africa is huge and each country is different, in terms of the dynamics, the conversations they're having. So we also look at, in terms of sustainability, where the conversations are, right, in terms of that maturity. And those are the markets. Other than the B Corps, a lot of people coming to ask us about partnerships, looking at the conversations that are taking place on sustainability or the impact ecosystem. So those are the ones that we have. But with that said, like when I say Kenya, to be honest, I mean the whole of East Africa still. Right? It's just that from Kenya, it's so easy for us to support all of that. We have a lot of conversations also taking place from Francophone speaking countries that have started. And that's why I say those, when I say those are the focus, that's where B-Lab will now host an event out of pocket and all that. But we are still seeing, like, that's why I'm saying we have conversations all the time with Francophone speaking countries as well, and just to see how we can support that market. So the conversations are happening all across Africa, and but it helps because we're a lean team, and as we grow and scale, we need to have focus points
Yeah.
as we, and that's
Yeah.
why I'm saying year on year, we are looking to grow. Like this year, again, as I mentioned, now we actually have team members based out of South Africa to help us grow the movement there. We had our summit last year in Nairobi. Now we want to have it in South Africa. And really it's just looking at how can we serve the business environment better? How are we thinking Pan-Africa as well, right? And yeah, that's where we're at in terms of build-up.
Yeah, I'm curious, two things. One, what's your own business model? Is DFID still involved in terms of funding? No?
No. So our business model as it is right now is we have certification. So there is a part where we are revenue generating, and this is from certification and programs, right? But we also are fundraising. So 50-50. Our revenue and revenue from certification and programs is able to run our day-to-day operations, but have a lean team. But we know we are thinking ambitious, we're looking at growing, we're looking at scaling, and that's where funding comes into play, right? So it's still very much doing both at the moment, pulling both levers, but we're really working towards sustainability. How do we get more companies to become big ops? Because big ops pay us an annual revenue fee. How do we make sure we are creating even programs that can be adapted or contextualized to the African market, that are revenue generating as well? And we're hoping if we grow that base more, as we get BLAB known more in terms of the work that we're doing as thought leaders in sustainability, then we don't have to
rely as much on funding.
For fundraising. So but as it is right now, we are pulling both levers. Yeah.
Do you have an example of like a collaboration that you've had with any other ICSDG, what do you call them?
UNSDG.
Yeah, UNSDG. Is there, talk to us a little about those kind of collaborations.
From a fundraising, sorry.
Both from a fundraising and also just from even a thought leadership, but also a contribution to the growth of this impact sector.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, honestly, as I mentioned, we are a lean team as BLAB. So partnerships are crucial to us in everything we do. They're very crucial in terms of events. We work with, like I'll give a perfect example for our summit. We actually had partners who helped us to be able to now fundraise to execute the summit. We didn't do it by ourselves, actually, right? So it's a matter of getting those like-minded organizations. You mentioned very well the UN SDG Action Manager, our other tool. So that one we actually collaborated now at a global level, BLAB and United Nations Global Compact, to come up with the SDG Action Manager tool that businesses can use to align themselves, their businesses to the SDGs. And how we were able to create awareness for now SDGs and the tool was actually a grant from the Gates Foundation that they gave BLAB Global, and then our BLAB Global now
able to
cascade it to the different global partners to be able to support that as well. And I mean, we've also gotten some funding also from International Foundation, and this was actually where we did financial literacy program for women founders and leaders.
Oh, nice.
Now in Kenya, we targeted a couple of counties, and we actually did a course on that, and we also now taught them how to also measure and manage their impact. That's to align it to us, because again, we want a business. We believe businesses should be profitable and purposeful, right? We just want it to be a delicate balance, because both are important, right? So for us, partnerships are very important. It's the same way we also have this, what we call B Leaders program. And this B Leaders now is actually consultants that we have trained up. Again, I said we're a lean team, but if there's a company that needs extra hand-holding, we actually, and the team, the BLAB team may not be able to do it. We've actually trained individual consultants, right, that are actually doing other work, but they are they want to use also the Bay Impact Assessment tool to support businesses that are trying to start their sustainability journey or wherever they are at. So we train them on how they can use the Bay Impact Assessment tool to be able to support businesses, right?
And that's a paid for service.
Yeah, so for them, so what they will do is they'll pay us to train them, but now once a company approaches us and they want to use they want to use the services of a B leader, the B leader and the company can agree on the services.
Independently.
Yeah, so what we do is we'll direct them to our website. These are the B leaders that we have. And you as a business, you're the one to choose who do you want to work with based on location and maybe what their expertise is at. So for us, partnerships come in different ways. It can be a donor, it can be an organization. We've actually partnered with various impact investors or even accelerators that are taking companies through just anything on business, and they'll bring us in to train up on sustainability, right? Just do a course on sustainability, right? And the course could be as long as you want or as short as you want, right? So for us, partnerships take on different way. I mean, it can be creative because I don't think any partnership should be the same. But long story short, it's very crucial for us to create the impact that we want to create across Africa.
Get you. And now, Lucy, how do you move from ops manager into CEO?
That's a good question. So I've been with B-Lab now for 7 years. And again, I started off with what I knew and what took me to school, really, right? Because my again, accounting and finance, and I moved on to ops. And here, when I say ops, I was still managing our finance, admin, ops, right? And that's what I did, I'd say, for the whole of 2017, 2018. Again, the beauty of being in a smallish organization is that you're able to do quite a few things. I did a bit of business development and programs as well. And here was business development again for mainly East Africa, but as we were moving towards Africa as well. So I moved on to doing business development, heading up programs. And then in March of 2020, we're in 2022, I took a sabbatical. I did 5 years at B-Lab and I did take a sabbatical.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, so I did a sabbatical for 6 months.
Baby number 2 or?
No, baby number 2 came in 2019.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Why a sabbatical?
I if I'm going to be very honest, I think I was just deciding what's next in my life. And I just needed time to think about it. I'd done 5 years at B-Lab because it was actually March 2022. I just decided.
You've steered the company through the COVID period. You have 5 years is a lot. You do quite a bit.
Yeah. So by then, to be honest, I actually always say I had done everything at B-Lab except maybe communications. That's the one thing maybe I'd not touched on, right? So, but by then I was just, I think I was really trying to figure out what next. And I wasn't seeing what next well then. And maybe it's because I was in a food. So I actually just stepped back. I handed in a resignation letter and I became a farmer. I was a farmer actually I'm still a farmer. But that's when my farming journey started, when I took, 6 months, because I went back to B-Lab as a CEO in September of 2022. But during that period, it was just, I remember I was doing some coaching. I don't know if there's midlife crisis. Maybe I was going through I always feel like I was going through something then. But yeah, I did take that. I have a farm in Muranga. So right now we have avocados, and then we harvested a lot of maize because we did a lot of maize, and we have this really big harvest that because so we've just harvested a lot.
Which side of Muranga is it?
Kabati. So
Kafati.
Yes, Kafati.
All right.
Yeah, so that's where, in fact, I'm taking a trip tomorrow. Saturdays is when I go check it out. Yeah, so then is when I put in the foundation. for farming, currently doing it with my side of the family. So I actually think, I always say, again, things happen for a reason, because farming is intensive.
Yeah, it is.
It really,
it takes a lot.
It takes a lot.
And it's difficult to do it, it's difficult to do proper farming pattern. You either have like good infrastructure, people to help with that, or you have
so
something
that
gives.
was a season that I was able to do that, to do the infrastructure and all that. I mean, we're still setting it up, but the groundwork was done there, because I see how busy I am right now with work life. And if it was us starting the farm right now, I don't know who would do it, because all of us do have full-time jobs. So I think that period, even as I was figuring out what I wanted to do, was really good for just setting that foundation. Right. Yeah. I'm still trying to learn how to balance the three. And when I say family, work at B-Lab and the farm. But yes, I think it was really good for that. Yeah. But yes, I was on sabbatical for 6 months.
And then you received a call, or was it an application that you had to do?
I did receive a call now from the board. And at this point, they were like, you know, their position has come up. Would you be interested in, you know, just because I'd been with B-Lab for the longest time, would you be interested in taking this position as the CEO of B-Lab Africa? And I said yes. At that point, I actually didn't think I'd ever go back. You know, the way when you close a chapter, you're like,
it's done,
yes. I was like, yeah, this chapter is closed. It was great. Let me figure out what's next. I knew there was something next. It wasn't, the sabbatical wasn't supposed to last for life, but I did think I needed it, really needed it. And so even when I got the call, I remember I was like, no, the truth is my plan was never to come back. When I closed that chapter, that was it for me. So, but I really loved the work that we do. That one for sure, I've always loved the work that we do. At a minimum, even as I tried to figure myself out and where I wanted to go next, I loved the work. And so when I got the call, I actually did say, let me think about it, just because I do believe, I'm one of those with many beliefs, that even when I commit to something, I want to make sure I can be able to give it 100%, right? If I'm not going to, then there's no need for me to start that journey. I really try to make sure I'm a person of my word, right? So I thought about it and I'm like, I really love the work that they're doing, and I can do it for an interim as we figure out what's next, right? Yeah, so initially it was supposed to be 6 months. Now I'm here 18 months later. Loving it so much. I'm very proud and excited of the work that we've done. And the one thing that I've loved is it's also given me clarity. I think when I left the 5 years, I wasn't very clear on what I wanted to do next. I knew I loved B-Lab, but I wasn't very clear on this is what I
Did the
want.
coaching help?
I think the coaching helped a bit. It helped, but I think when I came back right now, and I think maybe that, you know, there's a pressure I was not giving myself, because I think after leaving, I was like, you know, life happens. I think there are things that happen that show you life is not always a straight line. Like, it's okay to be knocked down, but you just need to get back up, right? It's not always like this for everyone. Sometimes it's like this, you know, it can be whichever way, crooked. But it's a matter of just don't get knocked down, just come back up. Right. And I had a bit more clarity, I think, after that 6.5 months. But when I came back as well, that's where I didn't put pressure on myself. You see, that's why I'd say the 6 months. And I really, again, as I said, I was so passionate about the work that we did. And I think when I came back and I remembered the passion of what we are doing, I can lead it and steer the organization to where it can go, right? It's made me very passionate. And again, B-Lab again is very aligned to my values. So the one thing I credit and I love about coming back that is given me clarity on is I know what I'm doing. Yes, it's very aligned. I'm still trying to figure out the purpose, but it's very aligned to where I see myself going and the career I'd want to take, which gets me excited.
Which is good.
Yeah. So for me, again, as I say, that's why I'm saying I'm at that point in my career where when I'm taking a role, there's some things I look at, right? I mean, for me, the money is important. I'm not going to sit down and start saying that doesn't matter. It does. We need to live, right?
And at the stage of life that you are in right now, obviously, that's a key consideration.
Yes, all those things are important. But for me to also move there has to be something that I know I can contribute to this role, right? Other than the money, what else is driving me and getting me up at night?
Excited,
What is getting me excited? Why do I need to push in another 2 hours?
And what, right now in your role as CEO, what keeps you up at night?
I think one, our target. Okay, there's one, the funding, right? Because again, as I said, there are 2 levers we're still trying to pull. And for me, that one keeps me up because we still need that to expand. We have very big targets and really big goals. And for just trying that is a big piece. If it can figure that out, I think that would get me excited. Again, as I told you, our 2024 and 2025 strategy, very ambitious. And just seeing how can we meet that? What do we need as an organization? And also just making sure the employees are happy. Right? Because again, as I told you, getting good talent is, there are people who are, everyone has all the papers and everything. But we're trying to see how do we make sure that you also have people who are passionate. For me, just wanting to know about the work that we're doing, sustainability, passion, I think is very important for you to be able to do their role well and making sure that they are happy to the level that I can. I'm very big on integrity and being honest with the team. What we can do for you, we will. What we can't, I'll be very honest and be like, give me maybe a couple of months, a year or 2. But also just making sure we have the right team in place, in a good place, as we all navigate life. Yeah.
That's an important one. Very.
Yeah, no. Well, as you become a leader, obviously, managing people becomes one of those things that you need to do. And I believe how you manage them also matters, whether they're going to stay in the organization or not, right? And be able to give the results that you'd want them to. Right? So I'd say those are the things that keep me up at night. And I'm also learning how to let go a bit more, right? And just letting the team. I try not to be a micromanager, but I have perfection in tendencies. So those are the ones that I'm also trying to learn how to step out. Yeah.
When you've achieved, you somewhere mentioned in the conversation, you and your spouse are about to turn 40, about to enter into like a new decade. As you project onward, what do you see?
That's a really good question. And at this point in my life, and I've been telling a lot of people this, that there's a contentment I have. I don't think I've achieved everything that I want to achieve, but I love the fact that there's a contentment where, okay, this is where I'm at, and I can see the steps, right? The steps towards where I want to end up, if that makes sense, right? There's still a lot I'd like to accomplish, but when I step in, there's content. Something that I felt I was missing, I'd say,
in your earlier days.
In my earlier days, especially when I moved back, there was no contentment. That's why I kept on thinking, what is up? But I think the last 2 years, if it's something that is shown me again is, that's what I was saying, life is not a straight line, right? Just roll with the punches. And again, also looking back and seeing the wins. Right? I'm one of those, because I'm so hard on myself sometimes. And for the first time I came in this year, I'm like, I'm going to celebrate this win and this win. Maybe it didn't get to where I wanted to, but it's still a win. There was a step up.
And it's incremental.
Right? So I'm trying to change my mindset to that. There's still a lot we want to accomplish and we haven't done yet. Both me and him, but I think that's the one thing I really like is that place of, you know what, this is where I'm at, and I'm at peace with where I'm at. It doesn't mean I'm complacent, but I can be okay with this as we move on to the next stage. I still want to be known as a thought leader in sustainability. Right. So seeing how do I make sure that I am on top of my game in what is happening, right? As I am called to speak and all that. So that is something that I'm still trying to work on. How do I get that? Now I have pivoted. Again, as you've heard, my career started in accounting and finance, but now it's moved to sustainability. So how do I upskill on that? How do I make sure that I'm known as a thought leader for that? A couple of years ago, that was something that I was concerned about. It's like people still saw me as accounting and finance, but now it's different. So, I mean, it's just giving yourself grace in your journey and time. I love that. Time. Give time. There's something about time I've come to learn is if you give time, there's some things I thought were such big stressors for me 3 or 4 years ago, both as a personal and a professional level, and they are not
anymore.
So maybe, and that's why sometimes I'm trying to remind myself that as well. There are things right now I might be seeing as stressors that I may not have accomplished. And believe it or not, even in my career, I believe that there's some things I'm like, I should have accomplished this by now. Why is it not now? Right? And giving yourself that grace to know there's still all that time to accomplish that.
Yeah. So the previous guest who was here, I mentioned earlier that we all leave a question behind. One of the questions, so weeks ago we were sat here with 2 different people. One of them mentioned something about if there is any unanswered question in your life, what is it?
Wow. Unanswered. There's so many. I think for me, the one thing that remains unanswered, but I have to say, I'm one of those people who believe in anything that's unanswered. I have this box where I don't try to dwell on it. I'll give my caveat on that. I don't dwell on some of these things. 2 questions. One, I think when my sister passed on, there was a part of my life where I was thinking, and that's personal and professional. So personal is that, where I kept on wondering, okay, so why is this happening to my family? Yeah, my parents are good people. Like, really, they're good people. Even in society, they're good people. And they are believers and all that. So why is this happening? Right? But I don't dwell too much on it, but it's one of those I put in that I don't know it box, and it can get you stressed out for nothing. And then the second thing, it's taken me the longest time to get to this point where I'm content, right? Just looking at my journey and coming to a place where, you know what, I feel that my purpose is even in Africa, right? And I actually do feel that I can't wait to see what we can do as change makers, because everyone is a change maker in bringing Africa to where it can be, right? So before I got to this plan, there was that plan of what brought me back to Kenya, right? It's just like what brought me back, literally what made, like, things were working out. What was that switch that turned on and brought me here, right? And then there was that, now it's been 10 years in, but I'd say a good 5 to 7 years, I was still like, should I not go? Now is where I'm one of those, I believe I can live anywhere. Like, me and my husband, we're very open. Wherever the opportunity comes, we are open. But you see, my mindset is different. I'm willing to move elsewhere because I know what I want to do. We know the kind of jobs we're looking for. We know when the opportunity comes. I'm not moving from a desperate point of view. There, I was still like, is this for me? It doesn't look like it's working out the way I wanted. But you see now, and that's why I loved what you said about time, right? Because there are people who relocate and this is the best place. But that was not my journey. It's taken a while, but I'm there now, right? And that is just time as well, where maybe those things I've gone through, the journey I went through is what has brought me here. And I'm able to maybe also see why businesses need what I'm doing, why I'm now more passionate about trying to change Africa, because maybe I had to go through those things again firsthand, right? But there's a mindset even for me that has changed. But yeah, that was a question I really struggled with for a long time.
Interesting, and I'm glad you've mentioned both. And as you say, one is personal, one is professional, but we are at a time where it's not even possible to, it's one life.
It is.
And it's an integrated life.
It is.
Especially the more we continue working virtual and from home. So 1 hour in the house is with the children, the next hour is with a serious meeting, the next hour is a conversation with the wife or husband, the next hour is...
And I appreciate that. I really do. I love the fact that we get that. I'm sure our moms and dads didn't get it. So I really appreciate. Yes. So I really appreciate it because at least my job can be demanding sometimes, but I love the fact that since I work virtually most of the time, it's so easy for me to put in those times in place to make sure I'm connecting, because my family is also something that's very important to me. As much as my career and my work is, the family as well, and making sure that I'm not dropping one ball for the other.
If as we begin to conclude now, for real.
Yes.
If there's something or a training or an opportunity that you could provide Lucy at Strathmore before you leave, what would a life advice or an opportunity or a training that you could provide her at that time?
Who, me then?
Yes. Now that you have the benefit of like a 20-year hindsight, what would that be?
I think what I would say is it's okay to make those mistakes. If I was going to be really honest, I'm happy I did accounting and the background has been great. But if I was to go back to school right now, I think I'll do something completely different, even not engineering, just based on what I love to do right now. It might be something on sustainability or something like that. I'm not sure, but I do believe it would be something very different, right? And it's okay then if you give yourself that grace of, just make a decision, and the decision can change, right? As long as it's not something that's going to harm you, it is okay, right? I think I would tell myself that to also give myself more grace. Just give yourself grace. It will work out. Somehow it has worked out. And I can see, and I'm not there yet. For sure, I'm not. There have been some good wins and even just things that have brought me down. But I'm at a place where that's what I'm saying. I've learned how to give myself more grace. I'm not there yet because I still have perfectionist tendencies. I still want to say yes to everything, but my calendar won't allow.
How does that play out? Especially, are you that way also? Like, are you that perfectionist also when it comes to being a parent? And how does that play out for you? Like, do you feel, because most perfectionist parents we sort of have, this is the way I need to be there for my child, and life at times just won't allow that to happen. So you end up beating yourself also quite a bit for that.
I've come to learn, by the way. It's so funny because yesterday we were at a sports game and we bought some hot dogs for my son, one of them, and he just poured. We won this this picnic blankets, and it's black and white, and he just poured mustard and ketchup on one, and a big stain. And I just kept quiet. And my husband was like, "You're not going to say anything about it?" I just looked at him and told him, even if I said anything, is it going to change? Let him have fun. We'll just go get it washed. And I am learning because I started off, and I think when you start off as a parent, there's a certain way you want to do parenting. I'll be one of those parents, my kids are not going to watch TV.
Then they teach you different.
Yeah, they're going to dress like this. Now I have a 7 and 5-year-old who have their own mind and all that. And I'm big on, they should obey, but I'd want them to speak their mind. I would want them to to know how to express themselves.
And push
Obviously,
back where necessary.
yes, and push back where necessary. So that has taught me, you know what, calm down. It can't always be your way, right? Yeah. And that's why I'm saying I was trying to live vicariously through my children, but they're teaching me, no, some things won't. So I'm learning. I'm being humbled. Life has humbled me a lot sometimes because, I mean, that just because of that, and you realize some things are never that serious. Things don't always have to go my way, but I'm learning.
Thank you, Lucy, for honoring and sharing your time. I know you need to be with your children. The boys need you at in exactly like 15 minutes. You just, I'll request you to just close and just maybe offer a quick intro stroke outro that can go into the video about your experience here and what you're looking forward to.
Okay. Hey, my name is Lucy Mwigai, CEO of B-Lab Africa. I'm a friend, I'm a mother, I'm a career professional. I mean, all those hats I put on. Thank you to MaqC and the Development Dynamics team for having me here. It's so interesting that I keep on telling everyone that I didn't have a story, but we've spoken for 4 hours straight. And it's a good way to reflect on my journey. And the one thing I want to say is life is what you make it, right? It's really what you make it. And I believe right now, especially, there's so many opportunities that, and I don't think age is a factor. I don't think where you live is a factor. It's really a matter of believing yourself. And are you willing to do what needs to happen for you to get to what your dream is? Yeah. And one of the things I'd want to leave you with is enjoy the journey. Enjoy it. I mean, it has ups and downs, as you've heard from me, but enjoy the journey. I do believe, looking back, everything that has happened for a reason that has got me to where I am with my skill set, both as a parent, both as a career professional, and it has helped me to be able to balance, my emotional intelligence as I also look at, just in terms of my other technical skills that I have. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And out.